Over the past 10 years, I've literally spent thousands of hours trying to figure out how to price my accounting firm's services. And I've done this for many other accountants as well. And, there's different ways to approach it. I've had tons of different mentors. I've done it. I've literally created an application that does this for accountants. But today, I'm going to show you how you can actually do this yourself using ChatGPT. So what we're going to do in this video, I'm going to actually show you how to create an entire pricing scheme for your firm. So we're going to hop over to my other screen here. And what we're going to do here is this is going to go. We're going to go through an 11-step method to pricing your accounting services using ChatGPT. So what you're looking at here is basically we're going to start with the GPT-4 edition. So we're not using the free one. We're using the GPT-4, and we're going to go through a series of 11 prompts that we're going to fine tune this, and we're going to go through everything from pricing to figuring out your niche. And to actually creating a brochure for your services. So let's start off at the top here. So what we're going to do first, we're going to go and type in the first one. So can you help me identify an ideal client for my bookkeeping business? Can you ask me any relevant questions I need to consider and help me form a list of criteria that my ideal client needs to have? Okay, so we're going to focus on bookkeeping now. If you also offer other things like tax services as well, there's a way to include that in here. But for this particular example, we're going to go through bookkeeping just as the basics. Okay. So I am literally typing this in the prompt, and I will include the prompt below this video that you can grab, so you can don't worry about remembering everything. You can literally copy and paste these prompts that I'm going to use here. Okay, so now we've set up the context. So it's ChatGPT responds with, "Sure, I'll be happy to help. Let's start by asking some basic questions to define your ideal client." Okay, so it's going to ask a few questions, right? So for example, business size. What size of the business are you targeting? The industry, right? So what specific industries do you want to target? Any particular niche? Your location, whether you're on site or remote. Tech savviness, financial health. Are you looking for businesses that are financially stable, or are you interested in helping struggling businesses get back on track? Types of services required, right? Frequency of service, budget, values, and last, commitment. Are you looking for long-term client relationships, or are you open to short-term contracts as well? Now, when you type this prompt, your mileage would vary. This just basically comes up with for 10 particular examples of what it's going to ask here. So in this case, I think I'm pretty satisfied with what it gave because it encourages me to really think about the clients that I'm really trying to target in on. And if you're not sure, that's completely fine. If you have a new practice and this is completely new to you, this is an excellent exercise. If you are a existing practice, you're already doing this, then I think this is going to be a lot. This is going to provide a lot of value because it's going to help you really think about how you originally structured all of these services. Okay. So this is the first thing. Now I'm going to go and ask, can you create me an example using this criteria for a small US-based tech startup? Okay, so tech startups is a niche that I work with a lot. I actually run a tech startup, so I'm very familiar with the industry. So I'm going to use this as an example. Maybe you focus on real estate. Maybe you focus on veterinarian services or construction, engineering, medical services. So whatever your niche is, you can actually put those in the brackets so it'll focus on your particular niche. And the more specific, the better. If you're general services, maybe if you don't really have a particular niche, that's fine too. You can just kind of, leave it as, just generic. Okay, so now it says, absolutely, given your specified criteria of working with a small US-based tech startup, here's an example of what the ideal client profile might look like for your bookkeeping business, okay? So I'm literally giving it a way for it to kind of suggest for me, right? Maybe I don't really know the answer to these questions right now, or I kind of need some help to see how it would answer based on other best practices. So it's literally giving me an idea of that, right? So business size, small to medium-sized businesses with a team of 10 to 100 employees. All right, that sounds good. Industry, focused on technology and startup industry, especially those involved in software development, SaaS products, or e-commerce. That's perfect. Based in the United States, especially tech hubs like Silicon Valley, Austin, Boston, and New York. Okay, because those are actually the most profitable. Tech savviness, high level of technological familiarity expected, preferably using or willing to use modern cloud-based accounting and financial tracking systems like QuickBooks Online, Xero, or similar, which is also perfect as well. I feel like it knows me. I mean, I've been using ChatGPT for quite a while, so it feels like sometimes it actually picks these things up. But the more you use it, you'll find that you're going to really get a lot from it. Okay, so financial health. Stable businesses that have secured initial funding with regular cash flow, but potentially complicated financial transactions due to investor relations, complex revenue models, etc. Okay, and then these other categories, right? So type of service required. Frequency of service. So, for example, regular monthly services required for keeping their financials in check, but potentially additional project-based work during fundraising, auditing, financial year periods. And later, we're going to talk about kind of like value pricing and how you can actually stack these and actually turn these into a menu-based system based on various tiers like bronze, silver, gold. It's going to do all that for you automatically. Super cool. Stick with me. Budget, sufficient budget to afford professional bookkeeping services, recognizes the value of a good financial management and sees it as an investment rather than a cost. Okay, that's great. Values, appreciates transparency, integrity, and data security. As a startup, might also value agility, innovation, and growth mindset. I mean, that's perfect. It speaks to me and my values. But again, you want to focus on your values and what's important to you in finding the ideal client there for that niche. And then commitment, looking for a long-term bookkeeping partner who can grow with them, understanding and adapting to their needs as the startup evolves and scales. Okay, well, I'm actually quite satisfied. If I wasn't satisfied and maybe I just needed another example, I could click on regenerate and that would actually give me a different list. It may be a little similar, but you can keep on clicking on regenerate until you get what you need. Okay. So, and it says here, it's a broad sketch you might want to adjust based on your experiences and specific skills, but it should provide a starting point for identifying your ideal client. Okay, great. So let's go to the next step here. So the next prompt you are going to enter, it's a little wordy. Again, you can copy and paste from what I'll provide for you. But basically it goes, so based on the criteria, can you make me a checklist table that I can use to grade the prospects I meet with? In the left column, can you list the criteria? Then in the next column, a short description of what the ideal client will look like for that particular criteria. For example, business size. The second column might say 500 to 5 million in revenue. In the third column, please have the heading score. I will use this column to add a tick or a cross. Finally, the last row should have an empty left column. In the middle, yada, 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 total score included. Okay, so basically the point of this is I want you to see what it produces, all right? And this is just a prompt, like I say, you can literally copy and paste this, and it's going to produce a simple checklist that you can use. So you have the criteria, the ideal client description, and then the actual score, okay? And the score is based, now this can be subjective because this is your score, right? So for example, so the criteria is business size, annual revenue between 500,000 and 5 million. Okay, so how important is that revenue to you? For example, if they're a startup, maybe if they just have no revenue, or they're pre-revenue, or maybe if they're like 10 million, that might be too far out of your range. Okay, industry operates within the technology sector, preferably software development, SaaS, or e-commerce, right? So that's going to be very important to me. So the score, you can come up with your own scoring system. So for example, you can give it each a 1 to 3. You can give it a 1 to 10. So basically, you want to come up with a score that you are comfortable with. And for each of these here, so we have 10 different criteria. So I think maybe a score of 1 to 10 would be best for this particular, if you are working with 10 criteria. So basically, perfect score being 100. and 0 being, just the worst possible score, and that'll make it easier for you to look at. You could do fancy things like maybe adding a weight to each score. That's getting a little bit in the weeds, but I think this is a good setup just to start with a score, okay? So again, business size, industry, location, and location is based in the U.S., tech savviness, financial health, type of service required, frequency of service, budget, values, and commitment, okay? And then at the end, it's the total score, so it should tally that up for you, okay? This is, when I say tally it up for you, what I mean is that, so when you go through this checklist, you are going to use this, and the way to use this particular part here is, when you have a client interview, when you're speaking to a potential prospect, you can actually either copy this list or print it out, and you can literally go through this. Now, if maybe if you're talking to a prospect, you don't have time to think about, is it a 1 or a 10? Maybe you can just kind of start with a check mark, right? So basically, for these 1 to 10, do they have, are they within that range or not, right? So either check or no check, just to make sure that they're on point, right? So different ways you can kind of flesh that out. Okay, so the next one, now based on this list of criteria, can you split the ideal client into 3 different segments for which I can offer different levels of service? Can you include a description of what each client will be interested in and how a different level of service will benefit them? Okay, so what we're trying to do is we are trying to segment into 3 kinds of categories, because eventually we are going to develop a menu price, right? So kind of like a bronze, silver, and gold, according to different levels of services for value pricing. So let's see what it comes back with. It says, certainly, here's how you can potentially segment your clients into 3 distinct categories, each with a different level of service. Okay, so it gives us the 3 service levels. So segment A is early stage startups, segment B is growing startups, and segment C is scaling startups, okay? So really quickly, so the early stage startups, so these are businesses that have just secured their first round of funding. Their revenue might be less than $1 million. They are focused on building their product, services, and gaining their first customers. So the service level says basic bookkeeping services, including managing accounts payable and receivable, reconciliation, and basic financial reporting. That sounds pretty good. Interest and benefit. They primarily need help with establishing good financial habits, understanding the cash flow, and maintaining clean books for potential future investments. Okay, so it's going to do the same thing for these other ones. So for growing startups, this says these businesses have a stable product, services, growing customer base, and revenue between 1 to 3 million. They may have multiple funding sources and more complex financials. They need comprehensive bookkeeping services along with cash flow analysis, budgeting, and tax preparation. You may also provide advice on cost management and efficiency. So before, I believe I mentioned to focus on bookkeeping. So sometimes it might sneak some other service in here. You might want to watch out for that. But a little later in this video, I'm going to show you how you can kind of weed those out when it actually creates the menu. So stick around. And then interest and benefit, right? So this is the middle tier, and it's effectively saying, this is kind of the in-between where they need additional services. The last one is the scaling startups, and this is where our more mature startups with a substantial customer base, diverse product lines, and revenue above $3 million. They are focused on expanding their market presence and scaling their operations. So the service level is full service bookkeeping, financial management, including detailed financial analysis, reporting, financial forecasting, assistance with audits, and strategic financial consulting. And don't worry at this point if you feel like, well, it's not really saying a lot of the things that I want to include. We're going to get to this a little later in the video where you're going to have an entire table of 30 different services that you can literally pick and choose and mix and match. It's so cool. So let's continue here. So the interest and benefits, they are likely interested in complex financial modeling and projections to support strategic decisions, managing investor relations, and ensuring regulatory compliance. High-level financial consulting can guide them as they scale through their operations and navigate potential financial challenges. So this is more of the where the consultative services come in. You may refer to them as, CAS or client advisory services, those higher margin services. So that's where that comes in. Okay, so it says, these represent different stages of startup growth and correspondingly require different levels of bookkeeping and financial services. Okay, so the next prompt we're going to write, can you now write a short 2 to 3 sentence description for each level of service that speaks to each customer segment as you have laid out above? Each description should start with the sentence, this package is for you if, then explain what the customer would like based on their criteria. It should highlight the benefits and value they will get from that package, okay? So let's break this down. Let's unpack what this looks like. Now, what this comes back is, it basically comes back with the 3 tiers and the brief description. So early stage startup package. This package is for you if your startup is in its initial stages of development and you are focusing on getting your product or service into the market. We will help you establish strong financial foundations with basic bookkeeping services, ensuring your financials are well managed and ready for future growth. Our service will give you the peace of mind to concentrate on building your business, knowing your finances are in good hands, okay? So now we're starting to come up with the language, right? And we're going to fine tune this, because eventually we're going to end up with an actual brochure that you are able to send or email or print off to your clients. So this is where the languaging comes in now. Okay, so this is actually pretty good for early stage startup package. I kind of like this. The growing startup package. This package is for you if your business has gained some traction and you're ready to take it to the next level. Our comprehensive bookkeeping services. And so basically kind of reiterates some of the stuff that we saw a little earlier. The scaling startup package. This package is for you if you're running a mature startup and are looking to scale your operations, okay? So this is more the full service bookkeeping. Okay, so now that we have this, so we kind of have the structure in mind. So now we're going to type, please shorten to 2 to 3 sentences each with more punchy language. Because you see here, this is a lot of stuff, right? So what I want to do is kind of shorten it up and give it more of like a punchy, because we're going to use this in some of our marketing material. So it's going to take that and kind of chop it down a little bit. So now it's a lot shorter, right? So early stage, it says this package is for you if you are an ambitious startup just taking flight. We'll provide the financial foundation you need, managing your books while you focus on your big launch. It's your ticket to stress-free finances right from the start. I like that because it's very straightforward, it's punchy, and it speaks to my target audience. Number 2, growing startup package. If you're a startup ready for your next growth spurt, this package is for you. We'll offer comprehensive bookkeeping plus strategic financial insights to fuel your expansions. It's your roadmap to start smart strategic growth. These are actually pretty good. I mean, can you actually see yourself, maybe just doing kind of like a YouTube or even an ad or a commercial with this? I mean, the language is actually pretty good and you can use it. Think about how you can reuse this language. And then the third is for mature startups looking to scale, this is your package. We offer top-tier financial services to navigate your business through complex financial terrain. It's your compass to confidently scale your operations, okay? So this is actually pretty good. If you do not like that, if you want maybe different kind of punchy language, or maybe if it's too bold for your taste, I'm pretty bold. I'm pretty much, to the point. So if you want kind of maybe a little watered down or not as, salesy, you can go ahead and click on regenerate, or you can ask it to give you a different version of that. Okay, so let's go to the next prompt. Okay, so now we're getting to the nitty-gritty. Now let's look at the names of each package for these tech startup companies. I would like to make the names unique, creative, and inspirational. They need to be relevant to the niche given in the example client. Can you give me 5 options for each of the 3 tiers? Each package name should align with the package name in the other tiers. The naming should be clear whether it's a package in the beginning, mid, or top tier. Do not use the word package or tier in the package name. Okay, a lot of stuff there, so let's unpack that and let's see what it comes back with. Okay, it says, absolutely, here are some creative, unique, and inspirational names for the 3 tiers of service. Early stage startups. So again, we have the different categories: early stage, growing startups, and scaling startups, okay? So it came back with some pretty interesting names here. So for example, early stage startups, Ignition Controller, Launchpad Ledger, Bootstrap Balancer, Seedling Synergist, Groundwork Guardian. Okay, growing startups, Orbit Optimizer, Rocket Boost Regulator, Momentum Maximizer, Ascent Accelerator, Thruster Therapist. Now, you have to understand something, and this, I'm just a little inside baseball here, particularly if you're working in the clients in the tech sector. in the tech sector, most of us are geeks. I'm a geek, and we love rocket analogies. Okay, we love anything to do with Elon Musk. So for me, this is perfect. I can actually name my services according to some things that relate to that. You can do something simple like bronze, silver, gold. Honestly, to me, that's boring. So if you're speaking to your clientele, for example, if it's veterinary services, maybe it's something, animal related, right? Those are things that folks can really relate to. So keep that it's a little subtle thing, but keep that in mind. And from a branding perspective, that is effectively saying that this is, your brand, right? Anyone can do a bronze, silver, gold, right? But who can compare, how are you going to compare someone's launch ledger to a rocket boost regulator, right? I mean, how are you going to compare, one of your package names to something someone else has that's, very generic? The point is, you don't want people to try to compare you, right? You want to be, you don't want to, you basically want to be different, right? So that's the key here. Okay, so and then scaling startups, you have startup strategist, galactic guide, constellation commander, nebula navigator, and pulsar pathfinder. Okay, we're totally geeking out here. I love this. And it says these names offer consistent space theme progression from early stage to scaling startups, matching the dynamic and ambitious nature of tech startups. I mean, this is speaking my language here, okay? So what I want to do is, what we're going to do in this particular exercise, we are going to choose one name from each of the stages here, okay? So I happen to pick 3 here, and I did this a little earlier, so we don't have to, waste our time doing this real time, but you can actually go through this with me here. So I went with 3. So I said, I will go with Bootstrap Balancer, Momentum Maximizer, and Constellation Commander for the package names. Create a package table with ticks and crosses that show the contents of these 3 packages. Create a list of at least 30 items and consider what services would be most appropriate to each customer segment. Let's order the table so that all the crosses are towards the bottom. This is for bookkeeping only. Please do not include other services like payroll or tax, okay? So like I said, we're focusing on bookkeeping for this particular example. You can go through another iteration to add on additional services like payroll or tax. So let's just kind of go through this. So we're going to generate this. And now it says here are examples of how you may structure the package table. So it literally did exactly what I asked it to, right? It created the table, services on the left, and then the package name. So Bootstrap Balancer as the first, so quote unquote low or bronze. And then the middle one is Momentum Maximizer. And then the high tiered one is Constellation Commander. I love that name, Constellation Commander. So authoritative. Okay, so now what we're going to do is, so if you look at this, it literally gave, remember, the 30 items to consider, right? So if you're not really sure what to offer, or you're looking for some other things to kind of throw into that package, heck, you probably do a lot of these services, but maybe you're not really itemizing those. So your clients have no idea of all the value you actually provide to them, okay? So this is a great exercise to kind of flesh out those services. So we have all kinds of stuff here, and focusing on bookkeeping. So the basics, monthly financial transaction entry, bank account reconciliation, credit card reconciliation, expense classification. So you'll see a lot of basic services all the way down until we get a little further down. And I'll just kind of scroll through the whole table. You'll see how these things are starting to change with the X's here as we get down. And remember, these are 30 different services here, all right? So this is where it starts to change. So for example, in the first part, we have a lot of different basic services: account payable, accounts receivable management, debt tracking and management. And then where we get into the next tier, the Momentum Maximizer, that's where we have the cash flow statements, okay? The fixed assets tracking that the mid-tier and the high-tier services offer. The inventory tracking, monthly budget versus actual, revenue by customer report, accounts receivable aging report, accounts payable aging report, cost of goods sold analysis, budget and forecasting. Oh, sorry. So this is where it actually ends, right? So basically, the cost of goods sold analysis. So this is really getting to more of the analysis and consultative stuff, right? So this is only available in the higher tier, okay? And this is not perfect. Of course, you're able to mix and match, and I'll kind of show you a quick trick of how you can do this in just a moment. But this gives you a great idea of sort of how these services are fleshed out. And like the key to understand is that the higher tier services are going to be in the higher tier package. So cost of goods sold analysis, budgeting and forecasting, custom financial reports, department-specific financial reports, revenue recognition tracking. So you can see there's a lot of additional services, and you may not need this or actually offer all these services, but again, you want to pick and choose what you're going to have for your own services here. Investor reporting, audit support. Maybe you don't do audit, right? So you can disclude that. Break-even analysis, KPI indicators, business analytics, and strategic financial consulting, okay? So basically, now the thing here is this is basically a breakdown of services. Now, what's missing and what you could actually add is two things, actually. So the customer service aspect, right? So response times, right? So for example, the lower tier will probably have longer response times than the higher tier, right? So you can ask ChatGPT to update it with an additional table that shows the rows including response times. Also, what I like to include is applications, right? So, again, I'm a tech geek, so I love making things super simple and automation. So you may want to include what software you support. So maybe it's QuickBooks, maybe it's Fathom, maybe it's some additional services either you are going to include or you are going to take over for them. So you may want to include the applications, and that's good to include because, this is in 2023, there are still so many businesses that, don't really use cloud services. So you may not want to be involved with folks that don't really have, they have like cumbersome, on-site based applications that are not easy for you to manage or extract data from. So another thing to think about. Okay, so I think we've kind of beat this up. Let's go to the next one here. And it says, so this is going to be the next prompt. So it says, now price these packages based on value pricing principles taught by Ron Baker. Who the heck is Ron Baker? This guy, he is the godfather of value pricing in the accounting world. He's been doing it for many years. My mentor, love the guy. There's a lot of other folks in the accounting industry that kind of claim they know value pricing and are, the gurus of that. This guy is the OG, okay? I think I'm pretty good. I've been doing it for a very long time too, but this is the OG. And the reason why I use his name is because he has a lot of content out there. You can check it out yourself. But basically, ChatGPT has picked up on this, right? Because it can scan a lot of his materials and kind of see exactly what is value pricing and how do you actually implement that kind of stuff. Although I teach a lot of this stuff, a lot of this information is already out there and ChatGPT has already ingested it, right? I'm all about trying to, do less work and be as efficient as possible. So that's kind of like a little shortcut. Remember little shortcuts as you're using ChatGPT. Okay, so suggest a base price for each package and explain the reasoning for that price. My ideal client will have a revenue between $250,000 to $5 million. And of course, you can choose this. I mean, this is something that you need to decide on what revenue numbers, but I would just say enter in some placeholders if you're not really sure. Okay, please bear this in mind. Please also factor in pricing psychology principles such as pricing that ends in 9 or having a larger gap between the premium and middle options than between the middle and low options and so on. So these are pricing principles. There's a lot of stuff in value pricing. I do a lot of other psychological things, like, for example, the work of Robert Cialdini, which works on a lot of persuasion principles and different metrics that you can use and principles within those. So we're going to keep this really simple for you. So you can literally just copy and paste this prompt to get you to the next part. Okay, so now that we have it in here, it says, In setting a value-based price, you want to consider the value and benefit you are providing to the client's ability to pay, and your positioning within the market. Well said. Since your clients are tech startups with revenue between 250K and 5 mil, you have a broad spectrum to consider. Here's one way you could approach the pricing. Okay, so it gives us remember the category, the package name. So the Bootstrap Balancer. So the base price is $4.99 per month. The Momentum Maximizer is $12.99 per month, and then the Constellation Commander is $2,999 per month. So it really adheres to these principles. Remember, because we asked it to do these psychological principles, such as pricing that ends in 9, or having a larger gap between the premium and middle options, and then between the middle and lower options, and so on. So this is exactly what it did here. Notice the price point difference between the $4.99 and $12.99, and then kind of like a bigger jump with the $2.999. So it goes into the reasoning behind it as well. Okay, so it says for the Bootstrap Balancer, this is your entry-level service tailored for startups that are just starting out. These companies likely have more limited budgets and simpler financial needs. However, the value provided through financial organizations, accuracy, and time savings is significant. The price ends in 9, leveraging the psychological principle that prices end in 9 are often perceived as offering more value for the money, right? So that's one thing. It offers more value for the money. Another thing is there's also another psychological principle with seeing like $4.99 and not $500. Yeah, $1 difference. However, from a psychological point of view, you kind of associate it more with 400 something versus 500 something. It's a very important little technique, but it's very effective, okay? Momentum Maximizer. So the package offers more advanced services, so it should have a higher price tag, geared towards startups that have seen some growth and have more complex financial needs. Jump from the Bootstrap Balancer is significant, but it aligns with the added value and more sophisticated financial insights that this package provides, okay? And then finally, the Constellation Commander. Basically, it's saying it's more premium. It offers more on the consulting and reporting side and tailored for folks with higher revenues, okay? And the price reflects this. Okay, so let's go here. It gives a bit more information, but basically, like I said, it does a really great job of, like, you know, if you don't understand anything about value pricing or mini pricing, I've done this stuff for years, and I'm really impressed with what ChatGPT can literally extract seemingly from the ether, because it's read, you know, thousands and thousands of different books, you know, Wikipedia articles, stuff from the experts, news, publications, and it really bakes in a lot of this stuff. I mean, you know, you can watch another video where I kind of go over the basics of this, but, you know, ChatGPT basically kind of like that expert in your pocket. Okay, so let's go to, we're getting near the end here. So basically now we have the actual names, we have the price points, and what you can do here is, you know, this pricing isn't perfect, but it's a good place to start. You might want to tweak it a little bit. If you're looking to figure out, well, how exactly is this like $4.99 per month? Like, can I afford this, right? Based on, you know, what I'm paying my staff, you know, that goes into a bit more of a computation. We have other videos on how to do that stuff, but basically, again, this is a great start to kind of think through your services, your niche, and what you're offering in terms of your base pricing, right? Because this is the base price, right? It's not saying it's exact. So when we create the marketing materials in just a moment, we're going to make sure that it says base price, so folks know that, well, hey, in this case, as a tech startup, it looks like I can get all this stuff for, you know, $4.99 per month. Maybe it'll be $5.99, right? Because there may be little things, right? So for example, maybe they want, you know, not, you know, 2 days response time. Maybe they want one, you know, 24-hour response time. So we need to boost that up a little bit, right? So there's ways that you can easily calculate that and add on. Okay, so now let's go to the next step here. And now I'm going to say I will now need to create a brochure to communicate the value of each of these packages. Can you create an outline for the brochure rendered in Markdown to be visually appealing? Include the table of services for visual comparison, okay? Now, before I show you this, one thing I want to show you with the table really quick, just to kind of go back here. It's a pretty long table. What you can actually do is you can actually copy this, so you have a little copy thing, little copy paste symbol here. So what you can do is you can copy this. Since it's a table, I'm just going to copy it directly from the table, and you can actually copy and paste this into Google Sheets or into Excel, into your own spreadsheet to kind of, figure what this should be in terms of what your services are. So I'm going to show you how to do that really quick here. So I'm going to literally copy this whole thing here, and I'm going to go and create a new, I use Google Sheets, so I'm going to go ahead and create a new spreadsheet here. And in my spreadsheet, let's blow this up a little bit. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and paste. So I'm going to go ahead and paste. And let's just see here. Let's just paste that in here. This is weird. What is this here? Why is it giving me this stuff here? Here we go. Okay, so basically I just copied and paste, so it should be Control C, Control V. I'm not sure why it gave me that little thing. Maybe that's something new. So what I'm going to do here, maybe I'll expand this, but I literally now have it in Google Sheets. I'm going to do a little bold here for the header. Maybe space this out a bit. Make this look a little better. Now I actually have a list of services. Now maybe, for example, I just I don't want to do audit support, right? So I can remove this, right? So I can go ahead and delete that row. So here is where you can kind of like fool around with it, just kind of think about your services, and in the end you end up with it's probably not 30 services. It may actually be something less than 20 or 15 services, but you are going to be the one to decide what you're going to offer in each of these particular categories. Okay, so now let's go ahead and go to the next one. So this is basically, and I'll just kind of blow this up a little bit so you can see it just to make sure. So this is basically a basic table that you can copy and paste. All right, let's go back to ChatGPT, and now getting back down to this. So where were we? Let's go back down to this step here. And okay, so this is where we asked it to create a brochure to communicate the value. Okay, so this is something that you are going to be able to give to your clients, and we're asking it to create a brochure rendered in Markdown to be visually appealing. What's Markdown? Markdown is a way that the text can be rendered in a visually appealing format. I love to use Markdown with ChatGPT because it makes things look a lot nicer. You don't have to do it. It'll do it in plain text if you don't. But watch the difference, right? So it says, sure, I can help you with that. Here's an example. So it basically gives it nice big headers and footers here. So for example, it says, you're a bookkeeping partner for a stellar growth journey. Okay, so basically it has a little intro at your company. We understand the unique financial challenges that tech startups face. We offer specialized bookkeeping services that cater to every stage of your startup journey, from early growth to scaling operations. Why partner with us? Okay, so expertise in tech startup financial needs, packages tailored to different growth stages, and value-based pricing for minimum ROI. Okay, and then we have the packages, right? So our stellar packages, and you notice how it kind of has this theme of like this whole stellar, space rocket kind of thing, and that's by design here. Okay, so number one, the Bootstrap Balancer for $4.99 a month, right? So it kind of gives a neat little way that you can almost start to copy and paste this into like Word or Google Docs to start to generate your own brochure, or maybe give it to your marketing person to help like say, hey, these are this is the base text language that I want. Take this, go to town, make this look visual. Like personally, I'm not a design person, so a lot of my stuff is ugly. So I have people to help with that. So, but this gives you the basic outline of what you want, right? So again, so I'll sell our packages. It has the first one. So it breaks it down. It has a little quote there. And then it has a full service list for the Bootstrap Balancer. So this is where the brackets, you can kind of enter in your own information if you want. It just kind of gives a little cutoff here. Same thing for the Momentum Maximizer at $12.99 a month. All right. And then lastly, for the Constellation Commander at almost $3,000 a month, where it also gives a a snippet of that as well, okay? So then it gives the comparison of packages, right? So include a version of your service comparison table here. So this is where we can literally copy and paste, the table from above, that, we copied in the sheets. Maybe we want to edit it here in sheets. Maybe whittle it down to like, maybe 15 or so services. And then we can take it and paste it in here, because you're not editing it in here. You're actually going to copy this whole thing here and put it into like a Word document or a Google Doc and edit it from here. I'm just kind of showing you the different parts of this document, okay? And then lastly, ready to propel your startup? Join us on a journey to financial clarity and strategic growth. Let's make your financial challenges a thing of the past. Contact us today. And of course, you'll enter in your contact information. Yeah, so this is the basic outline. We're not doing anything fancy. Unfortunately, ChatGPT does not yet actually take it to the next level where it, actually creates the images and graphics and PDF. I am actually working on a plugin that can do that. I'll be releasing that in a future video. Really exciting stuff. I'm almost scared, like 3 months from now, what's going to be available. You probably have a marketing team that does a lot of this stuff for you. And I'm finding that it's replacing a lot of the things that I've traditionally had my team or even some third-party consultants and freelancers do. Anyway, that's for another time. So this is the basics of it, right? So the last thing here I'm going to say here, so for each of the 30 items listed in the table above, please write a short 2 or 3-sentence description of the service explaining the benefits to that particular customer segment and why it's included in that particular package. Because you have these 30 services, but you might not even be sure exactly what it is or how to actually communicate its value. It's going to do that for you. Let's see what it comes back with. All right, so it actually wrote us 30 descriptions. So all the 30 things that we had in the table, it has a description, right? I'm not going to go through all of these, but so for example, monthly financial transaction entry. This involves recording all financial transactions occurring within a month. Having accurate records is crucial for startups as it provides clear financial visibility. It's a fundamental process and is therefore included in all packages, okay? So again, for bank account reconciliation, regular checks between your internal financial records and your bank statements ensure accuracy and prevent fraud. This helps maintain financial integrity, an essential requirement for all businesses. Credit card reconciliation. So it literally tells you ways to describe this. You can edit this, right? You can put this in your own words. You don't have to literally copy and paste. Although technically you can't plagiarize from AI. You plagiarize from humans. That's a whole nother topic there. But, some of you will just literally copy and paste that. And if you feel that it's very descriptive, I honestly think a lot of these descriptions are great. You can do that. But I encourage you to use your own words where applicable. Okay, so it goes and does this for each of these 30 services. And it gives a lot of great details on each of these services. And again, you think about this as a brainstorming way, kind of get the juices flowing on what you might be offering and what you may not be offering. But the big point here is that think about these services that you may be offering but not charging for. This is the real big idea here in this video, right? A lot of the consultative stuff, right? When we're focusing on like bookkeeping here, not even tax planning. I don't even want to go into, how many accountants I know that, you just giving all this tax consulting strategy advice and not charging for it. That's bananas, okay? Same thing on the bookkeeping side, right? Like, so for things like KPIs, particularly strategic financial consulting, you may think like these, monthly calls, our calls are kind of like something that, that's extra. Well, you should be charging for that, right? Because that is valuable advice that you are giving, okay? So be sure to think about that. But this is really it in a nutshell. I know this has been a very long video, but this is just to reiterate, this is basically the 11-step method to pricing your accounting services using ChatGPT. And hopefully you found a lot of value. I will see you in the next video.